A palace employee wasn't supposed to say any of this out loud, but now people inside Spain's royal circles are quietly asking whether Queen Letizia's obsession with control has finally gone too far. And honestly, the detail that caught my attention wasn't even the alleged rule itself, it was the reaction Princess Leonor gave when the staff member mentioned it. Because if this story is even half true, then the future Queen of Spain may already be living inside a system she secretly wants to escape. Think about that for a second. Not a political rival, not the media, not anti-monarchy protesters, but someone from inside the palace walls. That's what makes this different. According to reports now spreading through royal watchers online, a disgruntled former palace staff member allegedly exposed a list of private rules Queen Letizia enforced behind closed doors, rules about schedules, image control, food restrictions, staff silence, and even how certain family members were expected to behave during private moments. And before people say, well, every royal household has rules, yes, obviously. Buckingham Palace has rules. Prince William and Kate reportedly run a tight operation too. But what's interesting here is the tone people keep describing around Letizia's environment. Cold, precise, controlled, almost corporate, like the monarchy stopped feeling like a family and started feeling like a brand management company. And the reason this matters in 2026 is because Princess Leonor is no longer a child standing behind her parents at ceremonies. She's becoming the center of the institution itself. Every move around her now matters more than ever. The timing of this leak. That's the part one can't ignore. Because over the last few weeks, Leonor's public image has actually been getting stronger. Military training clips go viral. Crowds react positively to her. Younger audiences are connecting with her in a way Spain honestly hasn't seen in years. Even internationally, people compare her growing popularity to the early public fascination around Catherine, Princess of Wales when she first entered royal life. But suddenly, this palace staff story appears. Why now? That's the question nobody is asking loudly enough. And here's my personal take. Leaks like this rarely happen randomly. Especially inside royal systems built entirely around secrecy. Somebody wanted this narrative out there. Now whether the story is exaggerated or partially true almost becomes secondary. Because perception is what damages royal households now, not necessarily facts. And that changes everything. The former staff member allegedly described Letizia as someone obsessed with discipline and presentation. There were claims about strict dining expectations, careful control over public appearances, limitations on casual interactions, and intense internal pressure during major royal events. Again, some people will hear this and say, that sounds normal for royalty. Maybe, but here's where it gets uncomfortable. When multiple stories across years start repeating the same emotional theme, people start connecting dots. And the recurring theme around Letizia has always been control. Control over optics, control over access, control over narratives, even control over emotion. And if you've watched Leonor closely lately, there are moments where she looks exhausted. Not physically, emotionally, like someone trying to carry the expectations of an institution while also figuring out who she is privately. That's what makes viewers emotionally invest in her story. Not the crown itself, the pressure behind it. And I think the Spanish palace understands something dangerous right now. Leonor is becoming more relatable than the monarchy system surrounding her. That gap matters, because younger audiences today don't connect to perfection anymore. They connect to authenticity. That's partly why even creators like MrBeast dominate attention online. People feel like they're watching a real person, not a protected institution. Royal families haven't fully adapted to that shift. And honestly, sometimes Letizia still approaches public image like it's 2012 instead of 2026. Now here's the detail that really stayed in my mind after hearing this entire story. The staff member allegedly claimed there were unspoken rules about emotional appearances during difficult periods. In other words, composure first, feelings later. If true, that explains so much. Because have you noticed something strange about Leonor lately? She smiles. She performs perfectly. She says the correct things. But sometimes her eyes tell a completely different story. And maybe I'm overanalyzing it. That's possible, but I don't think I'm the only one seeing it. There's this growing feeling around her public appearances that she's carrying invisible pressure most people her age would completely collapse under. And this is where I think the palace may be making a massive strategic mistake. They're protecting the institution so aggressively that they may accidentally suffocate the person meant to save it. That's the irony. Because Leonor's biggest strength right now is that she feels human. Not untouchable, not robotic, human. And the more tightly controlled the environment becomes around her, the more audiences start rooting for her emotionally instead of respecting the monarchy traditionally. That shift is subtle but powerful. And by the way, if you're new to Leonor's story, subscribe, I post every day. Because the deeper you go into these royal dynamics, the more you realize the official headlines almost never tell the real story. Now, let's talk about something even more interesting. The palace hasn't aggressively denied these rumors. That silence matters too. Modern royal PR usually moves fast when something is completely false. Especially in Spain, where online speculation spreads instantly. But instead of launching a huge public response, the reaction has felt careful, measured, almost like they don't want to amplify the conversation. And sometimes silence is strategic. But sometimes silence accidentally confirms tension already visible to the public. That's what makes this fascinating from a media perspective. Because this isn't really about food rules or schedules anymore. It's about what people believe the emotional atmosphere inside the palace feels like. Huge difference. Look at the British royals for comparison. When people discuss Prince William, Harry, or Kate, they're usually talking about relationships, emotional fractures, loyalty, betrayal, pressure. The institution survives because audiences emotionally connect to the humans inside it. Spain is entering that same phase now with Leonor. The monarchy is no longer just ceremonial theater. It's becoming personality-driven storytelling. And in personality-driven eras, the coldest figure usually loses public sympathy first. That's why Letizia faces such a complicated challenge moving forward. Because objectively, she's intelligent, disciplined, media-trained, probably one of the most prepared queens Europe has seen in decades. But emotionally, many viewers still struggle to feel her. That gap has followed her for years. Meanwhile, Leonor's popularity grows precisely because people project vulnerability onto her. And honestly, I think the palace underestimated how quickly Gen Z audiences analyze body language, awkward moments, and emotional tension online now. One small glance becomes a TikTok theory within hours. That's the world royalty operates in now. Every facial expression becomes evidence. Every silence becomes suspicion. And if there truly are intense internal rules shaping Leonor's daily life, then the palace has a bigger issue than leaks. It has an authenticity problem. Because eventually the public starts asking a dangerous question. Who is the real Leonor when the cameras disappear? That question is powerful because people genuinely want to know. Not because they hate royalty, but because they see pieces of themselves in her pressure. And maybe that's why these stories spread so aggressively online. Not because audiences care about palace gossip itself, but because they recognize the emotional reality underneath it. High expectations, family pressure, public performance, private isolation. Those themes aren't royal anymore. They're universal. And here's the part one personally keep coming back to. What if Letizia actually believes all this control is protecting Leonor? That changes the entire story, doesn't it? Because suddenly this stops looking like manipulation and starts looking like fear. Fear that one mistake could damage the crown. Fear that Spain's monarchy can't survive another public crisis. Fear that Leonor must appear perfect because the institution itself feels fragile. If that's true, then this becomes tragic instead of villainous. A mother trying to prepare her daughter for a role that may emotionally consume her. And honestly, that's probably why this story resonates so much. Because underneath all the royal titles and palace walls, people recognize something painfully human inside it. The impossible pressure parents place on children they believe must succeed. That's not just royal life. That's life. Still, if these leaked claims continue growing, the palace may face a difficult decision soon. Do they modernize Leonor's image further and allow more authenticity? Or do they tighten control even harder? Personally, I think the answer determines the future of the Spanish monarchy itself. Because in 2026, audiences forgive mistakes faster than they forgive emotional distance. That's the new reality. And the strangest part of all this. The more the palace tries to appear flawless, the more the public becomes obsessed with the cracks.